Hello and welcome to the first edition of Reality.House Speedy Spark tutorials. My name's Ant Hagan and I'm an AR designer from the UK. I'm also AR consultant for TLNT. The idea behind these tutorials is not to focus purely on full effect builds, but on patch bay pipelines that can be used in a whole number of ways in a variety of projects. We're going to kick off this series with today looking at one of my favorite features in Spark, which is the energy meter. The energy emitter allows us to rig audio to objects and materials within a project, giving them an audio reactive element. Working primarily in the music industry with artists like Dua Lipa and 5 Seconds of Summer, it's great to be able to bring some extra interaction to the user. So let's dive into Speedy Spark. So first of all, you'll notice that we've got our audio track already put into the project, which we can sample here. We're going to try and keep this as simple as possible. So all I'm going to do is add a really simple black frame to the project, and we're going to use that as our kind of benchmark for playing around with different settings and different features and what we can do. So if we go into our scene, we're going to need to add an object. So we need to add a plane into the scene. So we find that in the object panel, insert that. It'll give us just a basic square. We need to then give that a material. We're going to create a new material. And we're going to rename this frame. In our textures folder, we already have our little frame, so we're going to add that to our material down here, and there we have it. Simple. We've got a nice little black frame that's just going to be the center of what we do, so it'll give us a really good idea of how the different settings work and all the different things. So let's maybe just make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. So if we go into a scale it up. There we go. Okay. Now, most of this from now on is going to be done in the patch editor at the bottom, so we'll get stuck into that now. So let's jump into the patch bay. So what we want to do down here is we want to start off with a pulse. Get things going. We're then going to add a single clip controller. That in there. Okay, this is then going to have to go into the audio player, which is important because we're going to need something to connect our actual M4A into later on. So that's going to go in there eventually. Okay, this is where we want to add our energy meter. So if I can spell it correctly. Energy meter, there we go. Put that in there. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is going to have to put our speaker in at this point. So let's get the speaker into the patch bay and add that to the audio, and then we're going to have to bring out the energy and we're going to put that into a square root. There we go. Some of these settings we're going to look at in a little while, which is going to make it, once we've finished the pipeline, we can then start to play around with how we want the square to react, and there's so many different ways you can do it, and that's when it's great because you can just play with it to your heart's content. So let's take our square root and let's add that to exponential smoothing, which will also give us a little bit more control on how much the square kind of moves, expands, retracts, etc, etc. We hit that with a multiply. And then finally, before we plug things in, we want to add a transition, because again with transition there's loads of settings that you can play around with. So if you look here, see the curve, you've got all of these different, these are all going to change how that frame moves and reacts to the actual music once we plug the audio in. So there's so much we can do. The transition, the exponential smoothing is going to really affect how the audio and the frame react together. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add our plane in as well. So what we do is we select it in the scene, and then we go over to its properties and add the scale. Okay, this will connect in here like so. Now let's go back to our audio player at the start. So this is going to be the most important part, is that we need to get our actual audio, which we've got here, and we're going to get that into the patch bay, and we're simply just going to drag it in like so. Pause that, attach that up. Hey presto. Sorry, that should be the position, not the scale, which I selected. Okay, there we go. Now we should see a little bit of movement. Maybe we need to move the multiply up a little bit. So put that to 1.2. And you can see that the frame is starting to shake. There we go. Now the transition, this is where we can have the most fun. So for instance, let's turn the end point, put it up to like 25. There we go. Now that's really starting to move the beat a little bit too much maybe. And then you've got these curvatures. So these are the different things that we can move around. So we can do it exponential in and out. We can do it as a quadratic. Goes a bit wild. I mean, this is all stuff that we can just play with until your heart's content. You can pull down the multiply. You can change the smoothing. It's going to change how quickly things expand and retract as well. And there we have it. That's your simple patch pipeline for using Audio Reactive to get your music to react to an object or a material. And this, once you've done this once, I mean, you can pretty much use it as many times as you want in as many different effects as you want. You can always reference back to it. You can always look for new ways to use it. Okay, well, thanks for joining us on our first Talent House Speedy Spark tutorials.